The shuttle's engines hummed softly as it descended toward the crystalline spires of the Zelari Palace. Commander Alex Rains pressed his forehead to the small viewport, eyes tracing the intricate architecture stretching into the sky like frozen waterfalls. Light reflected off the pale blue crystal walls, casting shimmering patterns onto the polished plaza below. This was humanity's first official contact with the Zelari, and Alex could feel the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. Every step he took here could shape the future of two species. The landing platform opened with a quiet hiss. The delegation disembarked, careful to match the ceremonial stance the Zelari emissaries had requested. Alex glanced around, trying to gauge the mood of the alien crowd. The Zelari were tall, elegant, their bodies covered in shimmering scales that glinted under the palace lights. Their eyes, wide and unblinking, seemed almost like liquid gemstones, studying every human move with measured intensity. They did not speak unless required, and when they did, their voices carried a melodic resonance that made the words seem heavier than mere sounds. "Commander Rains," said Ambassador Greer, who had been assigned to mediate the first contact, "remember to keep calm. They value control and precision above all else. One misstep could ruin the entire mission." The delegation was led into the palace through towering doors carved from translucent crystal. Inside, the corridors were vast and echoing, adorned with alien artwork Alex could not immediately interpret. Each step they took sounded hollow against the smooth floor. Despite the grandeur, there was a chill in the air, a sense of silence that seemed almost alive. Alex felt it prick at his skin, as though the palace itself were observing him. They entered a large hall, the centerpiece of the palace, where the queen usually held court. The ceiling soared high above, shimmering with intricate patterns that caught the ambient light and split it into hundreds of rainbow-like streaks. It was breathtaking, yet intimidating. The human delegation moved carefully, understanding that their every action was being silently measured. Then, as the palace seemed to hold its collective breath, the doors at the far end opened, and a figure appeared. Alex caught his first glimpse of the Zelari queen, a towering presence, her scales glinting like silver and her eyes sharp as twin stars. The hall seemed to still even more, the atmosphere thickening with the weight of authority. Every Zelari guard straightened, every noble froze in place. Time felt as though it had slowed, and then something completely unexpected happened. From behind the queen, a smaller figure darted forward, moving with astonishing speed. It was impossible at first to see her face clearly, but Alex immediately sensed the urgency in her movement. Within seconds, she was in front of him, and before anyone could react, she wrapped her slender arms around his torso in a firm but surprisingly warm hug. The palace froze. Literally. Every noble, every guard, even the queen herself, seemed paralyzed. The silence was deafening. Alex's mind raced. Protocol, diplomacy, first contact, all of that had just evaporated in a single moment of unanticipated action. He froze too, unsure how to respond. His hands hovered awkwardly in front of him, then gently rested on her shoulders, careful not to startle her. Hello," he said cautiously, trying to match the situation with calmness. The girl, Princess Lyara, as he would later learn, pulled back slightly, just enough for her face to be visible. Her eyes, wide and expressive, bore into his with a mixture of excitement and urgency. "You have to help me," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Something is happening in the palace, something dangerous." Alex's training kicked in. Situations rarely followed protocol in space diplomacy, he reminded himself. Sometimes intuition mattered more than procedures. "What's going on?" he asked, lowering his voice. Lyara glanced around, clearly aware of the stillness of the hall. "Not here," she said. "Follow me." The delegation behind him hesitated, unsure whether to follow, but Alex didn't wait. He ran after her, every step echoing in the empty hall. The corridor was narrower, lined with walls that seemed almost alive, pulsing faintly with light from within the crystal. Alex marveled at the subtle beauty even as his mind raced with questions. Why had she hugged him? Why did she trust a human with a secret no Zelari dared speak of? He had read about this species in diplomatic files, rigid, hierarchical, distrustful of outsiders. Yet here was the princess, defying centuries of tradition. Lyara led him through a labyrinth of passages, each more complex than the last. Alex noticed small details, ancient symbols etched into the walls, faint hums of energy running beneath the crystal floors, and occasional glimpses of guards who froze mid-step as they saw him. Clearly, his presence here was unprecedented. Finally, they reached a doorway concealed behind a shimmering panel. Lyra pressed a small device against it, and the wall slid open silently. Beyond was a room Alex had never imagined, a subterranean network beneath the palace, illuminated by soft bioluminescent lights. The space was vast, filled with chambers, corridors, and what appeared to be observation points. Ancient machinery hummed quietly, maintaining systems hidden from the upper palace. "What is this place?" Alex whispered, amazed. Lyra's expression was tense. "This is where the palace keeps its secrets, where the real power is," she said. "Not all Zelari are loyal to the queen. Some want to take control by force." Her voice dropped further, almost to a whisper. "They plan to use the old energy systems. If they succeed, the palace and the queen could fall." A coup inside a species renowned for order and discipline, and they were in the middle of it. His mind shifted gears. This wasn't just a diplomatic challenge. It was a threat that required immediate thinking, strategy, and courage. "Okay," he said, his tone steady. "We need to figure out who's behind this and stop them. Tell me everything you know." He realized that humans' advantage lay not in technology. They were advanced, but the Zelari were older and wiser, but in flexibility and creativity. Where the Zelari followed strict rules, humans adapted. Hours seemed to pass as they moved carefully through the underground network. Alex learned that the palace itself was a marvel of engineering, with systems layered in ways designed to intimidate and control, yet ultimately vulnerable to someone willing to think unconventionally. He smiled to himself. This was exactly the kind of challenge humans excelled at. Suddenly, Lyra stopped and placed her hand on his arm. "We have to be careful," she warned. "Someone knows we're here." A distant hum grew louder, vibrating through the crystalline walls. Alex crouched instinctively. "Energy surge," he muttered. "They're activating something." But there were other ways: distraction, clever manipulation, using their rigid adherence to protocol against them. Human strategy relied on unpredictability, and unpredictability was their greatest weapon here. He turned to Lyra. "We can't go in guns blazing," he said. "We need a plan that uses their own systems against them. Follow my lead." Alex felt a surge of responsibility. Humanity's reputation, its intelligence, courage, and adaptability, was now on display in the heart of an alien civilization. Failure was not an option. As they prepared to move, a subtle shift in the corridor caught Alex's attention. A faint vibration underfoot, almost imperceptible. "They're coming," he whispered. "Stay close." The human mind, he reminded himself, thrived under pressure. And if there was one thing humanity had proven throughout history, it was that in moments of crisis, humans could do what no one else expected, and sometimes that was enough to change the course of the galaxy. And in that frozen palace, beneath the cold gaze of Zelari authority, humanity's ingenuity was about to make its first mark. Alex and Lyra moved carefully through the hidden corridors beneath the palace. The faint hum of energy grew louder with every step, vibrating through the crystal walls, a subtle reminder that time was not on their side. The princess guided him past rooms that glowed with faint bioluminescence, chambers filled with machinery Alex could not yet understand, and observation points that overlooked the upper palace. "This is incredible," Alex whispered, trying to mask his awe with urgency. "How long has this been here?" "My ancestors designed these tunnels for emergencies to protect the queen and her power, but most of the palace doesn't even know they exist. That's how secret they are." A coup was already in motion, and they were racing against an unknown number of enemies armed with Zelari technology he didn't understand yet. He stopped suddenly, motioning Lyra to do the same. "Listen." Alex crouched, scanning the walls. A small alcove offered temporary cover. They slipped inside, holding their breath. The footsteps paused just outside the alcove. Alex could hear voices in Zelari speech, quick, clipped, sharp. Though he did not understand the words, the tone was unmistakable. Threat. They were being hunted. "We need to move," Alex whispered. "No." "Not exactly. There are whispers of a faction within the court, those who feel the queen has grown too soft. They believe humans are a threat, that we cannot be trusted. They want to take the palace by force, to use the old energy systems as weapons. If they succeed," she swallowed, her voice trembling, "the queen could be destroyed." Humans had faced coups and rebellions on their own worlds, but this was different. The stakes were higher, the technology unfamiliar, and failure could mean the destruction of an entire alien dynasty. He took a deep breath, letting his mind focus. "We have to warn the queen, but we can't just run in there. They will stop us. We need to think differently, predict their moves." Use their rules against them. Panels lined the walls, filled with symbols and controls that Alex could only begin to comprehend. The energy here was raw, powerful, and dangerous. They planned to use this to control the palace, Lyra whispered, to lock the queen in and give them full power. Something subtle, something they won't expect. We can predict what they will do. Alex observed patterns, pressing and releasing controls in a rhythm designed to confuse anyone monitoring the system. Hours seemed to pass, yet neither spoke more than necessary. Their focus was absolute, the tension palpable. Finally, Alex stepped back, examining the result. This should delay the activation long enough for us to reach the queen. It's not permanent, but it buys time. He pressed Lyra against the wall. We need to split the attention. I'll draw them off, you move ahead to warn your mother. Alex slipped into the shadows as she moved silently toward the queen's chambers. Moments later, the first Zelari guard appeared, scanning the corridor. Alex stepped out, deliberately knocking a small crystal vase off a pedestal. It shattered, echoing through the corridor. The guard paused, glancing around. Alex used the moment to dash into a side passage, luring the guard away from Lyra's path. One by one, Alex intercepted others, using quick thinking, agility, and small manipulations to confuse them. He was outnumbered but not outsmarted. Every guard he drew off allowed Lyra to advance, her pace steady and determined. Finally, she reached a chamber at the heart of the palace. The doors were grand, carved with patterns that signified royal authority. Lyra hesitated only briefly before entering, her hands steady on the door panels. Inside, the queen sat upon a throne, her presence commanding. She looked older than Alex had expected, but her eyes burned with intelligence and power. "Mother!" Lyra exclaimed. "There is a coup underway. They plan to use the palace's energy systems against you." Alex bowed slightly, keeping his stance non-threatening. "Your Majesty, we must act quickly. There is little time." Alex added his observations, his strategies, and his proposed next steps. The queen listened intently, her fingers drumming lightly on the armrests of her throne. "This is unconventional," she said finally. "But I see your reasoning. Your human approach, unpredictable, flexible, is what is needed." The queen would address the court directly, using protocol to draw out the conspirators, while Alex and Lyra manipulated the palace systems to prevent the coup faction from gaining control. Timing would be critical. Hours passed as preparations were made. Guards loyal to the queen were positioned discreetly, ceremonial sequences were set to lure the enemy into the open, and Alex coordinated small adjustments to the energy systems. The palace, once frozen in rigid order, now seemed to pulse with anticipation. Finally, the moment arrived. The queen entered the grand hall, her presence radiating authority. The nobles and conspirators assembled, expecting obedience and control. But then, Alex's subtle manipulations of the palace systems created unexpected delays and diversions. Lights flickered, alarms rang softly, and patterns shifted in ways only someone outside the rigid structure could have predicted. The conspirators hesitated, confusion spreading among them. The queen's voice rang out, commanding yet calm. "The palace will not be taken by force. Loyalty and honor will prevail." In the shadows, loyal guards moved to intercept, securing the conspirators without bloodshed. The hall, once tense with potential violence, gradually settled into stunned silence. The palace had been saved, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, strategy, and trust between species. The queen turned to Alex. "You have done what few could have. Humans, you are remarkable." Humanity had proven its value, not through strength, but through intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The palace, once frozen in shock and rigid tradition, now seemed alive with a new energy, a quiet acknowledgement that humans had made their mark. As the delegation and the queen's loyalists began to organize, Alex knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns and challenges. But here, in the heart of an alien civilization, humanity had earned respect. And in that respect lay the foundation for alliances, exploration, and shared futures. For Alex, Lyra, and the Queen, the palace was no longer just a seat of power. It was a testament to ingenuity, courage, and the unpredictable brilliance of humanity. And somewhere deep within the corridors, where shadows still lingered and secrets waited, Alex felt the thrill of the adventure yet to come. Humanity had survived its first test among the stars, and it had done so with ingenuity, honor, and heart. The sun glinted off the crystalline towers of the Zelari Palace, casting shimmering patterns across the courtyard. Inside, the grand hall buzzed with tension, though a different kind of energy now pulsed through the air. The attempted coup had been foiled, thanks to the combined efforts of Alex and Lyara, but the palace was far from fully secure. Loyalists were on alert, the conspirators restrained, and the queen herself had summoned her council for an urgent meeting. Alex followed Lyara through the corridors, her hand brushing against his arm in silent reassurance. "Mother has never trusted humans," she said quietly, her voice tinged with wonder. "And yet, she listens to you." "You certainly are." Alex noticed that some of the nobles whispered among themselves, clearly debating whether it was proper to acknowledge a human in their midst. "Commander Rains," the queen said, her voice steady and commanding. "You have done what few could. You have saved the palace without violence, and in doing so you have shown me a strength I had underestimated in your species." "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am honored to have helped." "And human ingenuity is formidable." After the council meeting, Alex and Lyara moved through the palace gardens, which were filled with crystalline plants that glowed faintly in the soft afternoon light. The air smelled subtly sweet, a fragrance unlike anything on earth. The garden seemed peaceful, almost serene, a stark contrast to the tension inside the palace. "You did well today," Lyara said, her eyes reflecting the shimmering colors of the garden. "I was worried when we first entered the tunnels. I thought we might not make it." Trust and teamwork matter, even more than strategy sometimes. She frowned, reading the message. "It's from the palace guards. There's been a small disturbance in one of the outer corridors. Nothing major, but someone is trying to access restricted areas. If there's even a small chance the faction isn't finished, we can't ignore it." The disturbance grew clearer, the sound of hurried footsteps, the faint click of devices against the crystalline doors. Alex crouched behind a large pillar. "Stay close," he whispered. "We'll need to be careful." "They're trying to regain access." The figures froze, startled by the sudden appearance of a human who seemed completely unconcerned. Their hesitation gave Lyara the opportunity she needed. She manipulated the panel with skillful precision, locking it down and alerting the palace security. The intruders, realizing their plan had failed, attempted to flee, but Alex moved with swift calculation, blocking their exit and guiding them toward waiting guards. Within moments, the corridor was secure. "Good work," Alex said, turning to Lyara. "That should buy us more time to ensure the palace remains safe." "Humans are certainly resourceful." Humans and Zelari working together. Your species' unpredictability, your ability to adapt and think creatively, is something even we Zelari can respect. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the crystal windows, Alex walked with Lyara and the queen to a balcony overlooking the city. The palace stretched out below them, its towers gleaming in the fading light. The streets were calm, citizens unaware of the near catastrophe that had been averted. "This view is incredible," Alex said, taking in the scene. "It feels alive. Let this be the foundation of our future. Humans and Zelari, united in purpose and respect." Lyara turned to him, her eyes bright with excitement. "There is so much we can learn from each other. Imagine the possibilities: technology, exploration, diplomacy. Together, we can achieve more than either species could alone. And I think this is just the beginning." The adventures ahead would be dangerous, unpredictable, and challenging. But they would also be a chance to prove, again and again, that humanity's courage, intelligence, and ingenuity could rise to meet any threat. The stars began to appear in the darkening sky, each one a reminder of the vastness of space and the endless potential for discovery. Alex felt a thrill of anticipation. Humanity had survived its first real test among the Zelari, and in doing so, had made allies who could shape the future together. As the balcony shimmered in the crystal light, Alex knew one thing for certain: humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun. And with allies like Lyara and the Zelari Queen, the possibilities were limitless. In the heart of the palace, beneath the frozen elegance of crystal and tradition, a new chapter was beginning, one where humans and Zelari could stand together, united by trust, courage, and the belief that the future belonged to those bold enough to shape it. And for Alex Rains, the human who had hugged, strategized, and risked everything, the palace no longer felt cold or intimidating. It felt alive, filled with potential, and ready for the next adventure. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy had noticed. The stars above shone brighter that night, reflecting off the crystal towers, a silent testament to what could be achieved when courage, intelligence, and collaboration met. The palace had survived, the queen had been saved, and humanity had earned a place in the story of the Zelari. And as Alex gazed out at the city, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humans were ready.